I'm going to start with the part nobody believes. My boss gave his favorite a brand new car in the middle of our Monday all hands and handed me a $20 bottle of shampoo like it was a joke prize. Keys for him, conditioner for me. If you think that sounds fake, I wish it were. I can still hear the keys chiming in his palm when the room went quiet and then exploded into applause. I can still smell the citrus mint off that stupid plastic bottle. I'm not here for pity. I'm here because that day was the last time I played nice. The conference room looked like a showroom pretending to be a brainstorm space. Polished concrete, and plants that looked rented, a wall of glass facing the city. Someone had wheeled in a bar cart with cupcakes and a balloon arch that said, "Happy B-Day, Aiden." Graham, our CEO, the kind of man who wears a sweater over his shoulders like it's a credential, stood front and center with a grin that hovered between fatherly and feral. "We celebrate performance here," he said, clapping Aiden on the back like he'd just won a war. "And culture." Culture apparently meant a matte gray coupe with a ribbon on it. The photo popped up on the screen. The car parked downstairs in our garage, the bow the size of a small child. Aiden lifted his chin the way he does when a camera finds him. He did the little "aw shucks" hand wave. People who needed things from him laughed too loudly. People who knew better kept their faces neutral. I was somewhere in the middle, practicing my default setting. Underreact. "And for our resident workhorse," Graham added, swiveling toward me with mock ceremony, "a little self-care." He held up a gift bag like a magician producing a dove. Inside was the shampoo, drugstore brand. The receipt was still in the bag. I didn't reach for it right away. I watched his eyes. He wanted the laugh. The room delivered it like a tip jar. My name sounded wrong in his mouth, drawn out, playful, intimate in a way that wasn't. When I finally took the bag, he leaned in and stage whispered, "For when you finally take a day off." I hadn't taken a day off in months. Aiden hugged him. I nodded. Cupcakes were passed. Phones came out. The interns filmed. The head of HR did that clapping without smiling thing, scanning the room for anyone not participating. Someone turned the volume up on "September" by Earth. Wind and Fire, like this, was a rap party. Over the music, I could still hear Graham reminding the room about our uphill quarter and belt tightening. You don't need me to tell you what comes after those phrases. Half the company was refreshing their email like a nervous tick. "Celebrate performance," he said again, and the word "performance" turned into a pit in my stomach, because I knew who had done the work he was celebrating. I went back to my chair and put the bag under the table, next to my satchel. It kept sliding, the way cheap things do, tipping against my ankle. On the screen, a slide cycled through Aiden's wins. Every bullet point was a project I had rescued at 2 a.m., or a client I'd soothed, or a spreadsheet I'd corrected line by cursed line. Each bullet had Aiden's name, none had mine. The part of me that still believed in fairness coughed once and went still. After the applause, people clustered the way they always do, gravity around power. Aiden did a slow lap, shaking hands he didn't deserve. He smelled expensive. "We should do a spin at lunch," he said to me, pointing his chin toward the garage like I'd be honored to ride shotgun. I said sure in the tone reserved for dentists. He grinned like we'd shared a joke. I stood there holding a paper plate with a cupcake and a bottle of shampoo. The label said "Revitalize." The irony was loud enough to be its own playlist. I took the plate to the trash and scraped the frosting off like I was erasing something. In the reflection of the window, I could see my own face. Tired, fine, forgettable, good for business, bad for ceremonies. This is the part where people expect a scream or a scene. I gave them neither. I signed the card everybody signed. I wrote "Enjoy the miles." I returned my pen to my pocket. And then I did the one thing I'm good at. I paid attention. At my desk, the emails kept arriving like weather. Aiden had replied, all on a thread. I started about a client renewal, adding bullet points that were copy-pasted from my deck. Graham replied with, "Excellent work, Aiden." I highlighted nothing. I forwarded nothing. I made a new folder on my drive called Travel Requests and moved nothing there. I listened to the office breathe. Across the aisle, the AP clerk, Janine, clicked through invoices with the flat stare of someone who can count longer than you can talk. In facilities, Leo was troubleshooting a badge reader. Weird overnight access, he muttered to no one, the way you mutter when you want someone to ask. In legal, the compliance manager's door was closed, blinds down. These details would have been background on any normal day. On this one, they weren't. Not because of the shampoo, because of the car. When someone gives a car in a company that's tightening belts, the belt is a tourniquet somewhere else. I didn't think bribes. I didn't think fraud. I thought optics. I thought, if the car is a message, who is supposed to hear it? The vendor rep was in the room, front row, clapping too hard. He's been after a renewal we couldn't afford, a package stuffed with buzzwords that don't survive contact with reality. He'd brought pastries to our stand-up 3 days running. He didn't bring pastries to the teams that said no. I put the shampoo on my desk and turned the label toward the wall so I wouldn't have to see it. My screen lit up with a calendar invite. Garage, photo. Sent from Graham's EA to everyone important plus me, as if to say, you get to hold the camera. I declined politely. Conflicting client call, I typed. That was true. The client would decide whether we made payroll in 6 weeks. On that call, I did what I always do, translated wish lists into deliverables, risk into timelines, panic into bullet points. The client's voice had that brittle edge you hear right before they shop around. We need guarantees, she said. We don't do guarantees, I said, but we do closure. I heard my own voice calm down as if it belonged to someone else. We landed on a number and a date. She exhaled. After I hung up, I copied my notes into the CRM and tagged Aiden because he owned the account. He reacted with a thumbs-up emoji. Graham responded with, let's loop Aiden in to drive this home. I looked at the shampoo again. The room smelled faintly of citrus mint, like the bottle had vaporized my dignity. My phone buzzed, a photo of the car ribbon, Aiden's hand on the hood, Graham's arm around him. The caption, Team wins. I didn't reply. If you're still listening, this isn't a sob story. It's an instruction manual written backwards. I'm not asking you to feel bad for me. I'm asking you to pay attention to the objects people give you when they think you're powerless. Sometimes they're insults. Sometimes they're levers. If stories like this are your thing, stick around, hit subscribe, leave a comment with the part you recognize from your own office, because you will recognize something, and I'll show you exactly how I used a $20 joke to rewrite a room full of applause. By 5:40 p.m., most of the office had migrated to the garage to take turns pretending the car was a company mascot. I stayed upstairs and finished a risk register nobody had asked for. I watched the badge logs populate for the south exit, small numbers, then clusters. Leo's weird overnight access drifted back into my head and found a chair. I opened a new note, titled it with today's date, and wrote one line. A car is never just a car. I slid the shampoo into my drawer, closed it gently, and decided that was the last thing I would accept with a smile. I didn't touch the shampoo again. I left it in the drawer, label turned to the wood, but it stayed in the back of my mind like a splinter. Every time Aiden passed my desk with that whistle he does, every time Graham dropped another team win email with my work scrubbed clean of my name, the splinter dug deeper. If part 1 of this story was a punchline, part 2 was the pattern, and the pattern was everywhere if you knew how to look. Here's how it worked. Graham would announce a new strategic initiative in our Monday stand-up, usually something that sounded pulled from a keynote. Integrated customer journey, frictionless pipeline, AI-driven insights, translation, slides. Aiden would nod like a prophet hearing divine truth, and 2 hours later I'd get a ping. Can you rough this out by EOD? The rough out would turn into a full deck, which Aiden would present as his directional thinking. Graham would beam like he'd just watched his son win a spelling bee. My name would be nowhere. By Friday, Aiden would be at happy hour telling interns how he built this deck in like an hour. He'd sip his IPA, let the silence linger, and then add, "Of course, execution is a team sport." On paper, my job was analyst. In practice, it was mop. Late nights, early mornings, the 11:47 p.m. Slack that said tiny tweak, which turned into a 7-slide overhaul. I learned to measure time by Uber receipts and vending machine snacks. Graham never asked why Aiden's ideas magically stopped crashing after I touched them. He didn't want to know. He wanted the myth, the golden boy who could do no wrong. But myths leave traces. That's what most people miss. They think corruption is bold, obvious, stamped in red. It's not. It's sloppy. It leaks. Like the time I noticed a vendor invoice that had been approved twice, once by the system, once by a manual override that only Graham or finance should have access to. Like the rebate check logged as miscellaneous revenue the same week Aiden's birthday balloons showed up. Like the calendar invite that went to Garage Photo, but was filed in our records as a client engagement event. I didn't go digging. I just didn't stop seeing. I started keeping a file. Not a whistleblower file, not at first. Just a folder I named Travel Receipts. Inside were PDFs, screenshots, forwarded email, time-stamped like diary entries. My rule was simple. Don't speculate. Don't connect dots that might not connect. Just collect. If the pattern was real, the picture would draw itself. Meanwhile, HR played their part. "You know Graham jokes with everyone," one rep told me after I asked, carefully if the shampoo thing had been appropriate. She smiled in that way, HR smile, like empathy is a checkbox. "You're valued here. Aiden just has visibility." Visibility, as in every meeting, every photo op, every project kickoff. I asked if visibility was performance. She tilted her head, like I'd asked if gravity was optional. The more I watched, the more I realized visibility was the currency. Aiden had it in buckets. Graham's minted it for him like coins. The rest of us? We were shadows, filling in the negative space. And shadows don't get cars. They get shampoo. One night, around 1 a.m., I was still in the office polishing a model Aiden would own in the morning. The building was mostly dark, humming like a sleeping machine. I heard the badge reader click at the south exit. Too late for janitorial. Too early for deliveries. I pulled up the log Leo had grumbled about. Same ID had scanned 3 times in the last week between 12:30 and 1 AUB. The ID belonged to Graham's EA, but the EA was out of state at a wedding. The system said she was here, swiping doors. The logs didn't lie, unless someone else was using her badge. That was the first time I felt my pulse quicken. Not fear exactly, more like recognition. A car is never just a car. A badge is never just a badge. Someone had been moving at night, leaving trails, trusting nobody would notice. Nobody but me. I didn't confront anyone. I didn't tip my hand. I did what I always do. I documented, screenshot, timestamp, file. And then I added a new note to myself, just one line. Shampoo sucks leverage. The days blurred into each other. Aiden got louder, Graham got warmer, HR got colder. Clients kept asking for guarantees. I kept giving them closure. At one point, the CFO pulled me into a side room. "We need to keep our margins tight," he said, not looking at me, looking at the whiteboard like it would give him a script. "Help Aiden succeed. That helps us all." Translation: carry him. I nodded. I always nodded. But I walked out of that room knowing the CFO wasn't neutral. He was invested, which meant the rot went higher than Graham. By then, my travel receipts folder was fat. Logs, invoices, emails, photos, even an audio clip from a vendor call where Graham promised special consideration if they stayed loyal. None of it was a smoking gun on its own. Together, it was a bonfire waiting for a match. The shampoo sat in my drawer, untouched, mocking and motivating at the same time. Every time I opened it to grab a pen, I saw the plastic bottle and thought, you wanted me small. You wanted me grateful for scraps. You wanted me invisible. What you didn't want was for me to pay attention, and I was paying attention to everything now. The car wasn't just a gift, it was a transaction. That became clear the day I saw the paperwork. It wasn't even hidden well. Janine in accounts payable slid a stack of invoices across my desk by mistake. Hers had been misfiled into my report batch. Nestled between catering receipts and software renewals was a line item from one of our preferred vendors. It read like a riddle. Client appreciation package, $68,400. No description, no breakdown, no PO number, just an approval code with Graham's initials. $68,000. You don't need me to spell out what kind of package that buys. The car Aiden was driving had a sticker price in that ballpark. The timing lined up. Vendor check cleared Friday. Balloons and keys showed up Monday. I asked Janine where the rest of the support docs were. She gave me a flat look, the kind clerk's perfect after years of watching higher-ups push numbers around like pawns. There aren't any, she said. Her tone was both warning and invitation. That's why I wanted to make sure you saw it. She slid her coffee toward me like a bribe, then lowered her voice. Don't let on it came from me. That was the first time I realized I wasn't the only one watching. After that, I started mapping the whole web. Graham wasn't stupid. He spread the favors around just enough to look like business as usual. Vendor discounts routed to marketing budgets. Rebates logged as miscellaneous income. Bogus travel reimbursements filed under client development. Always in small enough bites to keep auditors drowsy. But the car was different. It was loud. It gleamed in the garage like a billboard for corruption. Aiden loved it. He drove with the window down, even in the rain. Music cranked, one hand dangling on the wheel. He parked in the CEO spot when Graham wasn't around. He made sure interns posed with it for Instagram stories tagged blessed. He called it my bonus for being indispensable. Every time I saw that matte gray coupe, I didn't see luxury. I saw leverage. I started collecting allies, not friends. Friends get emotional. They spill. I needed nodes in the system. Leo in facilities gave me badge data. He didn't ask why, just grunted when I brought him a late-night sandwich from the deli downstairs. Weird hours on the south exit again, he muttered, handing me a printout. Janine kept feeding me invoices under the table, always with a shrug that said, I'm just doing my job. Even the security guard, Jorge, got curious after Aiden tried to bribe him with concert tickets. Jorge didn't like being treated like a doorman. He started texting me quietly when Graham's after-hours meetings ran too long. Piece by piece, the pattern was filling in. Meanwhile, HR doubled down on their script. They sent a company-wide memo about gratitude culture, encouraging us to celebrate peers publicly. The example they used, Aiden's visionary leadership. My stomach turned reading it. Gratitude, they said, as if swallowing humiliation was a form of wellness. I didn't fight it. I didn't push. I just filed it into the folder. The car became my obsession. I learned the VIN number from the insurance binder left on the copier. I learned the financing terms, technically company-owned, leased under the vendor's name, loaned to us for executive use. If you know corporate law, you know that's a shell waiting to collapse. Assets like that don't stay hidden when regulators come sniffing. So I set a marker. One night, around 2 a.m., I blocked out a future calendar slot on my Outlook. Just one word in the subject line, shampoo. A private joke, but also a reminder. The bottle in my drawer wasn't a humiliation anymore. It was a countdown clock. By the time Q2 wrapped, the air in the office felt electric, brittle. Layoffs were whispered. Clients wavered. Graham kept smiling in meetings, promising synergy and stability. Aiden strutted with his car keys like a trophy. Nobody noticed me slipping into rooms 5 minutes early, snapping quiet photos of whiteboards, cross-checking expense codes against vendor gifts, Nobody except Graham. One Friday afternoon, he stopped me in the hall, hand heavy on my shoulder. His voice was too casual. "You keeping busy, champ?" I smiled. "Always." He leaned in, lowered his tone. "Don't worry about the perks. Focus on your lane. People who chase the wrong things get run over." I nodded, steady, but inside, I wrote it down like scripture. Another line for the file. The car was supposed to make Aiden untouchable. Instead, it turned him into a neon sign, and I was the only one reading it. And every time I opened my drawer and saw that bottle of shampoo, I remembered. They thought this was funny. They thought I was harmless. They had no idea the joke was already running out of time. The sting had to be one shot. Clean. Undeniable. No screaming, no whistleblowing hotlines, no anonymous letters to HR that end up in Graham's desk drawer. If I moved, it had to be surgical. That's what months of watching, logging, and biting my tongue had bought me. Patience sharp enough to cut. The chance came wrapped in corporate theater, a pre-mortem with our biggest client. The contract was worth 7 figures, enough to decide whether half the company made it to Christmas. Graham scheduled it himself, blocked off the boardroom, ordered catering, even booked a photographer. "Optics matter," he said. Aiden, of course, was presenting. His slides were full of buzzwords and stock photos of smiling professionals who looked like they'd never touched our product. I knew if the client saw only that, we were sunk. I also knew if they saw everything else, Graham and Aiden were finished. So I built my own deck. Not flashy, just facts. Vendor invoices, badge logs, rebate statements, time-stamped emails. No commentary, no accusations. Just data. I tucked it into the presentation stack under a bland file name, Appendix Risk Management. If nobody asked, it would stay buried. If the client pressed hard enough, it would surface naturally. That way, it wasn't me accusing. It was reality revealing itself. The morning of the meeting, Graham strutted into the boardroom in a tailored suit, cufflinks catching the light. Aiden followed, grinning like a prom king, car keys dangling from his pocket like a medal. The client team arrived tight-lipped, not in the mood for balloons and pastries. I sat near the back, laptop open, silent. Aiden started his pitch. Slides clicked by. Synergy. Future ready. Value proposition. The client's VP leaned back, unimpressed. Their compliance officer scribbled something in a notebook, jaw tight. Finally, she cut in. "These are nice words, but we're concerned about transparency. Specifically, vendor relationships. Can you walk us through the approval process?" Aiden froze. Graham jumped in, smooth as ever. "Of course. Our process hats are rock solid. Nothing unusual." He gestured to the screen. "Why don't we flip to our appendix?" And just like that, the trapdoor opened. On the screen appeared the invoice. Client appreciation package, 68,000 per 100. Silence spread like a spill. The compliance officer raised an eyebrow. "Can you explain this line item?" Graham blinked, buying time. Aiden's smile twitched. My heart beat steady. I wasn't improvising. I was executing. Next slide. Badge logs showing late-night entries with the EA's ID while she was out of state. Slide after that. Rebate credits routed to miscellaneous income. And then the kicker. An audio clip. Graham's voice on a vendor call. "Stay loyal, and we'll make sure you're taken care of." The room went still. Nobody spoke. Even the photographer lowered his camera. The client's VP turned slowly to Graham. "We asked for transparency," he said, his voice like a door slamming. "This is what we get?" Graham opened his mouth, but Aiden panicked first. "Look, it's not. This isn't. Those are out of context." His voice cracked. Too loud. Too fast. The compliance officer shook her head. "Audio doesn't get taken out of context." Graham tried to steady the room. "These are internal artifacts, not relevant to..." But the client cut him off. "If this is how you treat partners, we're pausing discussions effective immediately." He closed his notebook with a snap. Chairs scraped back. Within minutes, they were gone. The silence that followed was heavier than any shouting match. Graham's face was stone. Aiden looked like he'd swallowed glass. My laptop sat open in front of me, cursor blinking on a note titled Shampoo. Nobody said a word, but everybody knew. The car, the perks, the rot. They weren't perks anymore. They were evidence. And I had just put the whole thing on record. The fallout hit like a controlled demolition. Loud, fast, and leaving nothing standing where it used to be. Within 24 hours, the client had escalated their pause into a formal investigation clause. Within 48, outside auditors were in our lobby with badges and clipboards. By the end of the week, Graham's office door was locked from the outside, and Aiden's prized car had a bright orange sticker on the windshield. Asset seized, under review. You'd think Graham would go down with quiet dignity, a man caught in his own web. He didn't. He went down fighting, spitting venom in every direction. "This is a misunderstanding," he shouted at the auditors. "You're blowing nothing into something." When they boxed up his computer, he barked at me, voice cutting across the office like a whip. "You did this, didn't you? You ungrateful little—" He didn't finish. The auditor beside him cleared her throat and reminded him he was on record. His mouth snapped shut, but his eyes didn't stop burning holes. Aiden cracked sooner. They pulled him into a conference room for fact-finding. He lasted 10 minutes before the muffled sobs leaked through the glass. "I didn't know," he kept saying. "I thought it was just a perk. I thought it was just—" But he did know. Everyone knew. The difference was now there were receipts. HR tried to pivot, as they always do. They sent a memo about a small number of policy deviations under review and reminded us all to stay positive and respect confidentiality. Translation: keep your head down, don't talk to the press, don't ask questions. But the press was already sniffing. A trade blog ran a piece, birthday car bribery, allegations rock Midtown Tech. A photo of Aiden leaning against the matte gray coupe went viral, captioned, "Happy Corruption Day." The board panicked. They convened emergency calls, hired crisis PR, and ordered immediate remedial actions, which in plain English meant find someone to blame who isn't them. HR floated my name as a disruptive influence. They suggested I'd misinterpreted normal corporate perks. They hinted I'd manufactured a grievance. But what they hadn't counted on was my folder. Every log, every timestamp, every approval code, it was all clean, all traceable, all backed by chain of custody. I hadn't whispered. I hadn't speculated. I'd let their own systems convict them. When legal asked me for my file, I handed it over with a single line. "Everything here is yours now." That was when the tide shifted. The auditors called my notes exceptionally thorough. The board called me cooperative. And the outside firm brought in to stabilize the wreck called me something else entirely. Candidate. They needed someone who could rebuild trust with clients. Someone who knew the rot but hadn't been part of it. Someone who could carry the story without carrying the stain. That night, sitting at my desk in an office that suddenly smelled of fear instead of citrus mint shampoo, I opened my drawer and stared at the plastic bottle. It was still there, untouched, label peeling. It wasn't humiliation anymore. It was evidence, a reminder of how cheaply they'd priced my worth. Across the office, movers wheeled out boxes from Graham's corner suite. Aiden walked behind them, pale, eyes hollow, clutching a cardboard box of his own with the car keys still inside. He caught my eye once, just once, and I swear I saw the question flicker there. "How did you do it?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to, because the truth was simple. I hadn't done anything special. I just paid attention. And now the people who'd thought I was invisible couldn't stop seeing me. By the time the dust settled, the company wasn't the same beast I had joined. The board didn't save it. They sold it. A larger firm came in under the banner of strategic acquisition, which was polite language for cleaning house with a pressure washer. Graham was out, formally resigned to pursue other opportunities. Aiden was scrubbed from the website like he'd never existed, his car hauled away on a flatbed in the middle of the night. Vendors stopped sending pastries. Clients started sending cautious inquiries. Are you stable now? Can we trust you? For the first time, the answers were yes. The new leadership wasn't sentimental. They wanted results, proof, systems that didn't bleed, and apparently they saw something in me. I got a calendar invite one Tuesday morning. Discussion, transition opportunities. It wasn't a pink slip, it was an offer. A director role at the new firm with a compensation package that included a signing bonus almost exactly equal to the sticker price of Aiden's car. I didn't even have to negotiate. They wanted me steady, on their side, visible. That word, visible. The same word HR had used to excuse favoritism. Only now it wasn't about being in photos or sitting next to Graham at happy hour. It was about credibility, about being the one who had receipts when everyone else had excuses. The day before I moved into my new office, I walked past Graham's old suite. The door stood open, the shelves stripped bare. The only thing left was dust and a faint outline where his diplomas used to hang. I reached into my drawer, pulled out the shampoo, still sealed, still mocking, and set it carefully on his empty desk. I wrote one word on a sticky note and slapped it to the bottle. Returned. No gloating, no victory dance, just a balance restored. On my way out, I caught my reflection in the glass wall. Same tired face, same quiet expression. The difference wasn't on the outside. It was in the fact that I wasn't a shadow anymore. I didn't have to raise my voice to be heard. I had built something louder than shouting. Proof. If you've made it this far, you already know the moral. Pay attention, keep the receipts. Don't let anyone convince you your worth is measured in trinkets. Sometimes the smallest insult, the $20 joke, the thing meant to shrink you, is the lever that flips the entire machine. So if this story hit you, wherever you're listening from, do me one favor. Hit subscribe, drop a comment with your own shampoo moment, and share this with someone who needs the reminder. Because trust me, karma doesn't come dressed as thunder. Sometimes it comes in a plastic bottle, waiting in the back of a drawer until the timing is right.